Welcome to Season 2 of Nuances Beyond First Impressions with the Asian Diaspora. Together, we wanted to create a safe space where everyone can learn more about our diverse communities, the complicated relationships we have with our culture, and how they intersect with feminism, queerness, disability, anti-racism, career choices, politics, and more.
I'm Ariadne Miller, a Filipino-American from a small town on the southern border of Texas.
And I'm Sherilyn Lee, aka Lazu, a new American originally from the only place a dodo bird ever lived, Mauritius. Over 90% of the work that goes into this podcast is done by me alone in my studio. That remaining 10%, though, is the most fun part, which is interviewing our guests and interacting with our guests and with you, listeners. It's been so great to get to know some of you on social media and hearing how the stories resonated with you. It's even cooler when you guys meet and interact through our posts. I love seeing that. This podcast has grown entirely through word of mouth, and we'd love to keep it that way. So if you want to help us grow this loving and inclusive community, go to whichever podcast platform you're listening to right now and write us a review. Tell us about an episode that really hit home or one that really piqued your interest somehow. You can even tell us what you hope we could do better. I'm always looking for feedback. This week's episode is an inspiring story. Our first boomer guest tells us about growing up on a plantation in Hawaii, selling his parents on an art degree in the 70s to become a technical illustrator, adapting to the digital age in the 80s, and more. He also shares how an anthropology class changed his worldview and helped him become more open-minded. For additional terms and links, please see the complete show notes on our website, nuancespod.com. In this conversation, we mention Pidgin and Creole. Pidgin is a grammatically simplified means of communication that develops between two or more groups of people that do not have a language in common. Typically, its vocabulary and grammar are limited and often drawn from several languages. Creole is a mother tongue formed from the contact of two or more languages through an earlier Pidgin stage. Now on to our conversation with Waddy.
Today we are here with Waddy Dacay. Waddy is from the island of Kauai, Hawaii. He attended Kapiolani Community College on Oahu in 1973, then went to art school in 1976 in Oakland, California at California College of Arts and Crafts, now called California College of the Arts. He graduated BFA in 1978 and got a job in Palo Alto doing technical illustrations for 2 years. Then he took another position with Lockheed Martin as a technical illustrator and transitioned into 3D animation for 15 years, joining Electronic Arts in 1995 for another 15 years, and finished his remaining 7 years at Bandai Namco Gaming as a senior marketing artist. Thank you so much, Waddy, for being here. It's great to have you.
Thank you. Welcome.
So tell us a bit about your family's history in Hawaii.
My grandparents migrated from the Philippines in 1922, and they came over as teenagers. They actually eloped from Naga, Cebu. My granddad was a chauffeur in Cebu, and he was dating my grandma, and she would take care of children for a European family. And I guess they had some influence in the community. So when my granddad started dating her, they didn't like the idea. So they blackballed him from any job, so he couldn't find work. So they eloped. They jumped on the boat, went to Hawaii, and got there in 1922.
Wow.
And then my parents were born on Kauai, on the west side of the island. My dad worked on the plantation, a sugarcane plantation, and my mom worked as a maid at one of the hotels.
What was it like growing up in Kauai?
It was great. It was like the best days of my life. I grew up in a little plantation town. It's like a camp. We call it a camp. It's owned by the plantation. It's still a pretty big place. It has to be about maybe 300 homes. Mm-hmm. But everybody lived in pretty much the same type of home, wooden home. It's a plantation home. It was really super old, but we all knew each other. We all took care of each other. We had a lot of kokua. Kokua is sharing and helping. People could be trusted, a lot of respect. And as kids, we would explore we would find things to do. There was no video games, no cell phones. So we spent most of our time outside, just foraging, going through the ditches and the reservoirs. We would make a lot of stuff to keep us busy. Like we would create things with our hands, like slingshots. I don't know, kids don't even do that now. They don't go through the forest and forage. So it was really different.
Yeah.
But it was great. It was hard because both parents didn't make much money. And so we had to sort of self-sustain, raising chickens. We also had a little hog farm that kind of offset the cost of raising 4 kids. So it was a lot of hard work.
Did you have some farming duties as a kid?
Yeah, every day my dad had this list of things that I needed to do. Well, all of us. There were 4 of us. We're all 2 years apart. I'm the youngest. before he left for work, he would always wake me up and he says, okay, I want you to do blah, 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 blah. And I'm thinking like, how long will this take me to get done so I can go out with my friends and mess around? But yeah, so he kept us busy. He tried to pile on the work so we didn't have time to mess around. But it was fun, time to get away and play.
What languages did you learn growing up?
Well, we spoke mainly English, but my English was more like broken. It was Pidgin English. So it's still a form of English, but it's all chopped up and mixed up with multiple different languages at the same time. My parents spoke English, but they were fluent in Visayan because their parents only spoke Visayan. So that's how they would communicate. But they never taught us how to speak because they would use it as like code when they would speak with each other. And they
talk about you.
They didn't want us to know what they were talking about. So they never taught us. But it was pretty much Pidgin English. I don't know if you guys understand Pidgin.
No, but I speak Creole, which is a similar thing, but derived from French. So it's probably very similar.
Yeah, I would think so.
I'm Filipino also. I have friends who speak Bisaya and I don't understand them, but I wish I knew more so I could go to different places in the Philippines and not worry about whether.
Right. Yeah, I remember my parents, we lived in the camp and there was a lot of old Filipino people. They would speak and my dad goes, oh, I don't understand what he's talking about. And I'm like, but he's still speaking Filipino. And he goes, no, but it's a different dialect. I don't think there were that many people that spoke Visayan. It was mostly Tagalog, I think. Yeah.
The camp that you guys were at, was it mostly Filipino?
It was mixed, evenly mixed as Japanese, Portuguese, Filipino, and some Puerto Ricans. Not that many Chinese.
Did you celebrate any Filipino festivals or holidays?
As far as Filipino, no. I think the only really Filipino wasn't a festival. It was when somebody died. They would make a big party. After they did so many days of praying, they would have this big party afterwards. If it was a Filipino person that died, then the party would be all this food, this Filipino food. As far as the island, the celebration that we had was a May Day. May Day was once a year, May 1st. And that was celebrating the aloha spirit and the giving of Lele and the flowers and celebrating the island, each island, and culturally how the spirit of aloha, the giving, the love. So it was a nice thing.
That's cool. What was it like with all those communities coming together? Did you guys all feel like you were well integrated into each other's cultures, or was it each group was doing their own thing? What was that like?
I think we were pretty well immersed in everybody's culture.
Yeah.
I don't think there was many differences. You still had your own cultural things, but we were so mixed because all my friends, you would go over to their house and their parents would say, hey, come eat, or offer you food. And so you experience all the cultural differences with their food, especially their music.
Yeah.
And so you're familiar. My neighbors are Japanese and they would pound mochi. They have this rock bowl that they would pull out from underneath the house every year. And they had so many sons and they would take turns pounding this thing. On the other side was some Portuguese guys. We were really mixed all over. We were well immersed in everybody's culture. So it was cool.
It sounds very much like where I grew up. Everybody was more or less integrated, which is not as much the case in the US. I feel like in the US and Canada, there's pockets. There's the Korean group, there's the Japanese group, and there's the Chinese group. And they don't seem to mix as much. At least when I was in college, that was my experience. But it's really cool to hear that in Hawaii, you guys all got to experience each other.
You know why I think that happened was my dad worked on the plantation and there's so many different nationalities working together. Mm-hmm. Some of them couldn't even speak English. So it's really broken. Some Filipino guys couldn't speak. So they had problems communicating. And I think that's how the Pidgin English formed, was all these broken words from all these different cultures coming together. And I think that's why they got along, because they had to. So many different nationalities and cultures come together. The work was hard. They all had to work together. They all shared their food when they would eat. When it was call time, which is time to eat, they would all break out the food and they would all share. So I think that's how the mix got really tight because of that. But you're right about the different cultures coming somewhere and just sticking in one area. Like there's Koreatown, there's Japantown, there's Chinatown, which is mainly the same cultures all in one pocket. Whereas when they all came to Hawaii, they were thrown into this one area, all mixed. It's just stayed mixed.
An interesting point. Maybe the geography forced it.
Yeah, I think some of it. And then also the comfort level of being around the people you can associate with and define with. You just feel more comfortable that way.
Yeah, it sounds like a fun childhood.
Oh my God. The crazy thing is, as old as I am, I still in contact almost daily with my friends.
Wow.
And we talk about old times and we just laugh. It's so much fun.
Are they mostly still back there, or did they also move to mainland
A lot
US?
of them are still back there. Some of them have moved away, but we're on this chat thing that we can all chime in.
That's really cool. Do
Yeah.
you go back to visit a lot?
When my mom was around, my parents were around, I would go every year. Now I go back maybe once every 2 years. Both my sisters are still on Kauai. So I go back. I try to go back every 2 years to visit, but I don't go as much as when my mom was around.
Yeah, I have not been to Kauai, but it sounds awesome.
It's so different from the rest of the islands because there's no freeways. There's no really tall buildings. I think the tallest building is 10 stories and there's only one. The roads are very simple, just 2-lane highway. Some places might get 4, but no freeways. And we never had a traffic light until recently. Not that recent. All through my growing up days and through high school, it wasn't a traffic light. And as soon as they put one light in, then now there's lights all over the place. But the traffic is bad now.
It has changed a lot since you left.
Yeah, it's still pretty much the same, but I think there's a lot of people there now. There wasn't as many people when I was growing up. There's never traffic. Now so many people. A lot of people from the mainland have moved over. There's Costco now. There's a Walmart, Costco. I think there's even a Target there now. It's strange. But I guess it's progress,
Yeah. So how was your experience moving to the mainland? How was that different? And what was your impression when you first moved over?
When I first moved over, maybe I didn't feel like I belonged, but I think I was more afraid because I've never traveled out off the islands. I've only traveled inter-island, but never left Hawaii. I came in at night, and I still remember coming in on a plane and looking out of the lights to see how far the lights went. And it was like, this is crazy. Why am I coming here? I'm going to be lost in this place. That got me really scared. But I think what happened was when I came, I found some people from Hawaii. And then what we were just talking about, you gravitate because you're familiar. And so that's how I started off, having the local people there and then slowly branching out from there. I kind of felt out of place, but I wasn't treated like I was out of place. I didn't have any of those experiences where I got looked at differently. Maybe I did, but I never noticed it. So my experience was pretty good, actually. I made a lot of friends, guy from Texas, guy from Colorado. The school was very diverse as far as people coming from all over the world. So it was a good mix. And I think that's a good way that you can immerse yourself in different cultures and get familiarized with the differences. So that worked out for me.
That's awesome.
How connected did you feel to your culture still being Hawaiian and Filipino, but then also moving?
I was very connected. I didn't feel like I lost any disconnection. I made it a point not to lose that because I saw so many people that would leave Hawaii, go to school on the mainland, and they would come back speaking perfect English. And they only gone for maybe 2-3 years. And I'm like, what happened? How can you change the way you speak when you're only away for 2 years and now you're a totally different person? So I'm like, if I go away, I'm not going to lose the way I speak. Maybe I can turn it off a little bit, but as far as going back home and trying to be different, I don't want that to happen. I just want to be myself. That was really important for me to identify with where I came from, how I spoke, things that I like. I even told my kids that too, because a lot of people, they come over from Hawaii and they see me. I've been gone for so long. And they go, hey man, you haven't lost your Pidgin. You're still talking the same way you talked before. I goes, why should I lose that? That's something that is your identity. That's you. Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah. And especially if you're visiting often, you still get that chance to practice
Sure.
a lot.
And I only speak Pidgin at home with my wife. I don't try to turn it off.
Do your kids speak Pidgin too?
They try. You were born here, so one of them can. My oldest daughter, she can. She can turn it on, and she's a good imitator. It comes easy for her. But my younger one, she can't, even if she tries.
How has your experience differed from being in Hawaii versus the mainland?
I don't know if there was much difference because I hung around with a lot of people from Hawaii. The only difference is probably the things that you get to do here, the activities that you get involved with, things to see, places to go. Very different. On the islands, you're kind of limited, in surfing, swimming, but you see the same stuff every day. Right? Here is so many different things that you can see and experience. I mean, just going across the Golden Gate Bridge is, this is crazy. That's the biggest difference, I think, for me.
Yeah. Would you say you identify more with your Hawaiian roots than your Filipino roots?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Maybe if my parents were born in the Philippines, it might have been different. Because I know my parents identified with their Filipino heritage because their parents were born there. So a lot of their upbringing was very strict, very Filipino, but they were born in Hawaii. So they had that cultural strength for the Filipino side, but they're also very involved on the local side with the Hawaiian side. But for us, we were like mostly Hawaiian.
Yeah.
It was because of our upbringing. So I think I identified more with the Hawaiian culture.
Yeah. That's the same for me. I feel a little bit Chinese, but more Mauritian.
Yeah, I can see why, though.
Especially because I've never been to, have you been to the Philippines?
I've never been.
Yeah, I've never been to China. So it's weird to say that I'm Chinese when I've never been to that country.
And the weird part is I keep on hearing like, "Whoa, you got a lot of relatives in the Philippines." I'm like, really? I don't even know.
Yeah.
Yeah, because my dad, they had 12 kids growing up. And I think when his mom came to Hawaii, she left one child back in the Philippines, the oldest daughter.
Oh, wow.
And I think from there, she had several kids. And so that's why we have so many relatives there. But I've never gone, never visited. My dad went, he wanted to dig up his roots. And when he retired, he went. Someone with some friend took him. He had a blast. He said he loved it. And he said everywhere he went, he said he had relatives. I said, really?
Big family.
Yeah.
Do you feel like there's been a difference as Asian American Pacific Islander, how things have changed for the community over time? Do you think we are in a different place now? Is it better? Is it worse?
I think so. The stuff that's happening now, especially with the old people getting mugged or pushed around or whatever, that is very disturbing. I think it's worse from what I feel. There's a gap for me in the way people think. People are not trying to understand other people's culture before passing judgment. I don't think there's any concern. I mean, any reason for people to even want to understand now. You know, it's like they don't care. And I think if they understood more of it, they would probably treat people differently.
Yeah.
So if you can understand the way people live and maybe take some of that on for yourself and understand like, hey, and this might be beneficial for me to learn these things and understand. So I look at them and realize that they're just people just like me, but they just do things differently. Going back when I first came over, thinking about it now, I came over with blinders, like a paradigm, visualizing everything through blinders, a very set in your ways. You know, you come from the island and, you know, very small thinking because you live on an island and you see things, you know, very one way. You don't want to open up. I took this class. It was an anthropology class. Actually making me tear up a little bit.
It's okay. Take your time.
It made me realize that you got to look at the world, open yourself up, and don't look through a real closed blinder. You got to open it up, understand why people do the things that they do, learn about the culture, and how by just introducing something really simple, which you think is very simple, into some tribe in the Amazon who don't even have a machete, and you introduce just a small little thing that you think is going to be insignificant becomes a big deal now. This machete can change everybody's life. Something as small as that, and you have to realize that just by introducing what you think is a little thing could have a huge effect on everybody.
Yeah.
That was important for me because it did open my eyes, made me realize like, hey, I'm not the only one here, you know. There's other people doing certain things, certain way, because that's how they were raised and that's what their beliefs are. And you just got to understand that. And it made it easier to cope once I understood that. It made me more relaxed and not anxious.
Yeah. When you grow up on an island, because it's such a small place, there's not that many people. There's only so many points of view that you're going to get exposed to throughout your life. So then when you come here, it's like, whoa, there's all these things I never thought about. I didn't even know existed. And
well, you never thought about thinking of it that way. It could be the same thing, but you're thinking about it totally different from the way that you would have thought about it when you were back on the islands. Because this is the only way I used to look at this.
Yeah.
I've got all these other ways to see this now.
So what would you say are some things where your perspective changed after that class? Can you think of some examples?
Yeah, I think I was more accepting of other people's opinions. I didn't get defensive, whereas I used to take things so personal. When someone would say something, it could be anything, and if I didn't believe in it, I would get offended very easily. And I think just from being from the islands, you're very protective of your beliefs and you're structured in a lot of ways to believe what you experience on the island. That when I came over and started opening up more, started realizing I don't have to get angry. I don't have to. You just got to be respectful, understand. You still need to be strong. You have to kind of be prepared and not make a decision based on your anger or whatever.
Yeah.
It reminds me of some of our guests have talked about setting boundaries, especially when they're dealing with people who have different perspectives or who make assumptions about them.
Yeah.
Yeah, just setting healthy boundaries.
You know, it's weird because it's almost like when you start to talk politics with people, and of course they have their beliefs, and you can go round and round with these arguments. So the best thing to do is like, just listen, and that's perfectly fine if you believe that. But I guess you just have to be comfortable with what you believe, and you don't have to push your stuff on other people. Just keep it to yourself because that's you as an individual. That's your freedom to believe that. Don't try to change anybody. You know, be nice to change for the better. You can only hope for that.
Yeah.
I think that's a lesson that is learned the hard way by most people. That you cannot change people.
Yeah.
Especially on the internet.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's a waste of time.
So when you were growing up in Hawaii, I know you have a very strong sense of your Hawaiian identity. Did you also feel like a U.S. citizen, or was that not something that you really thought about?
It's so weird. I was born in 1955. Hawaii wasn't a state. So I was born into a territory. Hawaii was a territory. And I've never realized that until I joined the Boy Scouts. I must have been in middle school or something. And we had this flag, the Scout flag, and it had the date of when the troop was established. And it said the territory of Hawaii. I'm like, wait, it wasn't even a state. I was born in the territory, not the state. So what does that mean? I wasn't really born in the United States. But actually I was, but it made me feel like I was born in Hawaii when it was a territory. So that made me feel more like I was part of the island. I don't know anything else but the island. Yeah, so I find identity with that.
Do you feel more an American citizen now?
I think I do, because when you're growing up and you're understanding, that's all you know. You know, it's like, oh, you're American. I don't know if they still do, but they always pledge allegiance and all that. It was growing up very American as far as in school and stuff, which I guess was fine for me.
Talk about your career a little bit. What prompted you to go into design and animation and art school? And how was that choice with your family?
I left Kauai, went to Oahu in 73, graduated, left, went to Oahu, went to junior college, and I was studying business management. I don't know why. I think I just needed to do something. So a whole bunch of friends, we moved to Oahu. It was more partying than anything else. It was nuts. I think back and I don't even know how I finished those 2 years because it's a blur. But that the last semester, while I was taking this business class, one of the electives was I had to do artwork. It was an art class. And I always loved doing art. I used to doodle a lot in high school. I used to be in the art club and all that. But I never really fell back on that once I graduated. Then I had this art class and started getting back into it, drawing. And I'm like, this is what I want to do. This is what I really want to do.
Yeah.
But now I had to convince my parents wanted to continue school, to go to art school. They wanted me to continue, but my dad wanted me to do more like something with the medical field. And so when I came back after the 2 years, got that AS degree, my mom said, so you're going to continue? I'm like, yeah, I want to go to the mainland and go to art school. And she said, what are you going to do? Sell your paintings on the street? I took her in the supermarket. I said, you see all these labels here on these cans and whatnot? I said, some artists had to do that. All the things we involve ourselves with every day, like a table, a chair, some artists had to design that. Somebody had to build that. And so that's all art. So she felt better once I explained it to her. And my dad was cool. He said, whatever you want to do, you can do it. They were poor. They didn't have money, but somehow they made it work. At school, when I think back, it was really cheap. But at that time, the way money was valued was very different.
Yeah.
But my parents struggled sending me to school, but they somehow did it. I'm very fortunate that they did. I'm very happy and grateful.
Yeah. That was very insightful of you to, at that age, be able to articulate that, hey, Mom, everything in the store here has art on it. I don't think at that age, I would have thought about that as an argument.
I had to somehow convince her because she was, how are you going to paint your way and get money selling paintings on the sidewalk and blah, blah, blah. Then I figured, oh, man, I got to show her that art is everywhere. And then when she got that, it was easier for her to say yes. It was a burden for them. They sacrificed a lot, but very thankful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really awesome that they were able to back you on it, even though they were.
Yeah, not too many parents would have done that. The background that I came from, I know that a lot of parents would have said, oh, no, we cannot do that. There's no way. because times were tough back then.
Yeah.
But my dad was a real stickler for education because he never graduated. Him and his older brother had to drop out of school in the 6th grade to support the family of 12 because his dad didn't work, his mom didn't work. So him and his brother worked in the fields, in the plantation to support the kids. So he made it a point that his children are going to get educated. That was his goal.
That's awesome. Especially in the Asian community, going into the arts is still something that makes parents go, are you sure you want to do that? So for people who don't really know, what does a technical illustrator or a senior marketing artist do on a day-to-day? What does that entail?
When I started in technical illustrating, when I graduated from college, I was going to move back to Hawaii. That was the only thing on my mind. Go back to Hawaii, be back with my friends. I started working in Palo Alto. Just got a job right out of school. And that was so much fun. All we did was pen and ink drawings. It was so different. No computers back then. Everything was done by hand. So technical illustrating was, you had a set of repetograph pens, Indian ink, and a bunch of templates, which was elliptical templates, French curves. It was doing fine arts, but in a technical way. Mm-hmm. It wasn't until 1982 that the computers came in. And by that time, I was already with Lockheed. And we were doing technical illustrating on the board with the pen and ink. And then computers came in. We all had to get rid of our drafting tables and jump on the computer. And that was a struggle because a lot of us didn't want to get rid of our board. So no, I'm not getting rid of my drawing board. Then the computer would sit on the table. Next thing you know, the drawing board, all it is stuff on them. piled up. It was more like storage and everybody was on the computer. They moved all the tables out and we were totally on the computer. That was 82. And then in 85, I transitioned into doing 3D animation for the defense industry for Lockheed. That was fun. We did stuff on really old hardware. We had 386, 486 PCs. I don't even know what that is now. That could barely even run anything. We have 32 megabyte platters that would run images on that. They were like huge platters. And each platter was 32 megabytes. Crazy. So that was the old school. And then it was transitioning really fast.
Yeah. So how was that for you? Did you have to take additional courses? I mean, it sounds like you made the transition great, but it wouldn't have been easy.
You know, they would come in and say, hey, who wants to do 3D animation? And it sounded cool, but you have to learn it by yourself. And here's the book. There's no classes back then. Here's the book, see what you can do. And so that was like a crash course.
Wow.
So I took the book in my lap and just went through it and did the lessons. And it was horrible. It was a struggle because it was so different. And it was funny because I was a bad student in high school and it was all about math and geometry. And it's so funny. It's like music. You know all this stuff in the back of your head, but then it just came to the front. All this geometry stuff all made sense now. It's like a light bulb turning on and go, oh, wow, that's what they're trying to teach me. And so it made it a lot easier to recall all this stuff and understand. So it was fun.
How long did it take you from opening that book to being comfortable with the tool?
Oh my God, it took forever. And it was still taking because everything changes again. They update, the interface changes. It was a constant going through all this new stuff. And then I joined the EA in 1995. I was moonlighting with EA when I was working at Lockheed because they use the same software. The defense industry had the same 3D software that the game industry was using. So some of my friends were working at EA and it goes, hey, why don't you come over and work at night and just help us build models and environments and stuff and do some compositing? So I went, I moonlight for almost a year. And then they said, hey, you want to work with us full time? I joined in 1995. Working on games, building environments, models, designing environments, which was cool. And then I got into video compositing with animation. I enjoyed doing that more than actually building the models. So I ended up doing more graphics and motion graphics and compositing. And that's how I transitioned into marketing. These tools are all available for artists. There's Illustrator, Photoshop, editing tools, video editing tools. And if you learn all of this stuff, you can combine everything to help you as your palette to work from. Because not everything is got to be done in Photoshop. So like After Effects, you can export it out to whatever graphics program you want. Now there is a crossover between all of this stuff. And I think the more you understand all of these things, all of these tools, it'll make your job a lot easier.
Yeah. How did you like EA as opposed to working in the defense industry? Was that a big change?
A big change. Working in the defense industry is cool. I like the top secret clearance to work on all these black projects, but nobody ever sees your stuff. So you can show it to anybody. So that was the biggest difference. With EA, you can expand on your creativity. In the defense industry, you got to do it a certain way. You can't really throw too much glitz in there because you're working off of a lot of engineering data that you pump into the 3D program that creates the movement. Everything is very structured and it's almost like forensic. Everything is all calculated and it has to be totally accurate. Whereas in the gaming thing, it's your creativity that allows you to expand and be very free with the way you want to create.
So in the defense industry, it was more top down where they give you those requirements and you just have to satisfy them the way they want, as opposed to...
You can, in some situations, you can, especially if it's a conceptual stuff, you can add some really cool stuff. But if you're doing stuff for a particular program that needs to be exact, it just needs to be exact.
Did you ever design some really cool spy gadgets?
Can't say, if I tell you, I got to kill you now. Joking.
Not really.
Being an AAPI person, did you notice that you had to maybe do things differently navigating your career?
No, I didn't get that feeling at all. Because at that time, what I was doing, there wasn't that many people doing it, 3D animation. The gaming industry just started doing it. And so there was a very high demand for people who knew how to do animation, who could build 3D models and stuff. I think because of that, maybe there wasn't much feeling. There was more like a demand for the stuff. So I felt wanted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good feeling.
Most of the guys who I worked with who did the same thing that I did felt the same way too. It's only, when they started offering 3D animation in schools, in colleges and stuff, then the market got flooded. They didn't need the old guys anymore. So they started bringing in all the new guys, which is fine. It was time to move on.
Now you can spend your days doing whatever.
Kicking back, talking to you guys. I was kind of excited when Vince told me about this. I said, it's cool if I can recap my historical thing and maybe have my kids hear it somehow. That would be kind of cool.
Yeah, well, I hope they'll listen to it. Since we mentioned Vince, so Vince is a band member of yours. You are a musician. So tell us a little bit about your musical journey. Was music always part of your life? How did you end up in bands?
Growing up, my parents used to always like to play the music at parties or get-togethers. We always had ukulele and guitars at home. My dad used to love to sing and play guitar and ukulele. My mom too. My mom was a really proficient ukulele player. So we grew up around that stuff. I wasn't really that proficient at playing. I only could play a few chords, but it was always the 3-chord blues song or something that when my friends and I got together. So what we did, we would just jam and all made up stuff. But it was just a good release. We would go down to the beach at the pavilion, plug in our amps and just play till like wee hours in the morning till the cops chased us away. So music throughout growing up, it was always around. And when I had my kids, got married and had kids, I just stopped playing music. And I think when my kids were a little bit older, my wife got me a guitar because she knew that I used to play. She said, you can play this guitar, but you have to take lessons. You can't play no 3-chord blues. You got to take lessons. So I did, took lessons, and that really helped me. I took some rock lessons and some jazz. The jazz stuff really helped, made me understand more. Then I started playing with a band. It was so weird how that happened. I met up with some friends and then we started just getting together and jam. And he goes, hey, somebody needs some music at this restaurant. Do you want to play? We won't get paid, but at least we'll play. I was so nervous. Never played in front of anybody. So we did that. And then we ended up doing more and more of that stuff. And next thing you know, we were like a band and we're getting paid. I said, that's pretty cool. And then from there, transitioned to another band, which was just a Hawaiian band, which was good for me because I knew some Hawaiian songs, but not a lot. This guy all he did was play Hawaiian music. So I learned how to play along with that and learn about the music, the Hawaiian side of the music, which is really cool. And then after that, I formed another band, which is the band today that we all play with, called Ilima.
Yeah, so tell us about Ilima.
Ilima, the name Ilima is Hawaiian. It means it's a number 5 because there's 5 guys in the group. Well, actually, 4 guys, 1 girl. We've been together for going on 7 years, I think. We've cut 1 album and we're working on our 2nd one as we speak.
Awesome. You mentioned you knew some Hawaiian music, but not as much, and then you had to learn them through the band. So growing up, were there native Hawaiians in the community, or was it mostly Asian?
Yeah, they were. They weren't, it's hard to find a native now, a pure native. There's Hawaiian people, but they're all mixed now. It's very rare to find 100% Hawaiian.
Yeah.
But there were Hawaiian people. They played music, and I envied Hawaiian musicians because they played slack key. The style, and it was like, so cool. I still enjoy it. Now, I can't play slack key, but I like listening to it. And then there was also Puerto Rican families that would play kachi music, which is from the Caribbean style, which is really cool. And they lived like right up the street from us. They would party like every weekend. I love their music.
I've been to Hawaii, and one thing that really struck me, there's so much music around everywhere.
Yeah.
That music is such a big part of the culture.
Yeah, you're right. Like, you can go to the airport and, somebody's playing music over there. You're at the gate, somebody's playing music at the gate. Everywhere you go, walking around down the street, somebody's playing ukulele, walking around. I'm like, that's cool.
Yeah, and it's something that people do as a form of socializing too, right? Like you guys would jam at family reunions.
Oh, totally. Yes. If you have a party, somebody got to bring the hookah or guitar. It's almost a given that's going to be there.
Yeah, it's the equivalent of the karaoke machine, I guess, for the Filipino parties.
Yeah, exactly.
Filipinos, they like to sing.
Oh, yeah, there's everybody. There's always a karaoke machine.
Yeah, it's relaxing. It's good.
Yeah. And my parents had said it was because in the Philippines, a lot of people didn't have a lot of money. And so that was what they did for entertainment. That was something they could do for free. So they would just sing together.
Yeah.
Before we let you go, we have a final section, which is the rapid fire questions. These are simple one word or one phrase answers. Don't think too much about it. And you don't have to explain, but you can if you want to.
Okay.
Okay. So the first one we have is, what was the first language you learned?
English.
What is the language that you speak with your parents?
English.
What's an Asian or Hawaiian food that you'll never get tired of?
Lau lau.
Who's your favorite Hawaiian visual artist?
Hawaiian visual artist. I don't really have one, but my brother-in-law was an artist from Hawaii. I love his work.
What's his name?
Gary Hostelero. Yeah, he just passed away recently. But yeah, Gary Hostelero. Hostalero.
What is your favorite Alima song?
The one I wrote.
Which is?
Through the Wind.
And then the last question is, if you could give advice to young AAPI people, what would it be?
Educate yourself in the field that you choose so you can open your mind and learn. Accept differences as a tool to expand your creativity and stay calm, positive. The industry is huge, but the force is small. So stay true to your culture and share it.
That's such great advice.
For sure.
Thank you so much for spending the time with us today. It was great chatting with you.
Cool. I enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
We did too. Thank you.
Here are our takeaways for today's episode. Number 1, having a rare and highly sought-after skill set can sometimes shield minorities from some workplace discrimination. Because Waddy was one of the few technical illustrators who learned how to use the software, demand for his skills far outweighed any bias employers or colleagues may have had against him. This could be a useful strategy for some of us. Number 2, when in unfamiliar places, we tend to seek other people like us who share our experiences. Number 3, reacting defensively isn't the only way to assert and protect your own beliefs and sense of identity. Listening and understanding others' viewpoints doesn't mean you agree with them. Arguing is not always productive. So engage with open ears and open hearts and pick your battles carefully. Number 4, art is everywhere you look. Music is everywhere you go. Every logo, every label, every ad was made by artists. Art isn't limited to just fine arts, at least until the robots take over. And number 5, tech breakthroughs are always a challenge to navigate, but often the only choice is to adapt, like Waddy did. We are now at the cusp of a similarly far-reaching breakthrough with AI and ChatGPT, so it would behoove all of us to learn how to master these tools and turn them into our strengths instead of being destroyed by them. That's it for today. Remember to give us that review once you finish this episode. I'm your host, Lazu, and I'll see you next week for another nuanced conversation. This is Through the Wind by the band Ilima.